Hi, I'm Reed, this is Crowdland Publishing, and we are a narrative gaming channel where we talk about the stories that we can get out of TTRPG, and today we're going to talk about DMing skills. This is the first in a series on the skills that I think are vital to the DM. Now, before we begin, not everyone is good at everything. Not everything is good at everything all the time either, but there are areas that you can study, that you can identify, and you can improve on. DMing is a skill, and you can get better at any skill. And getting better at DMing doesn't end, actually. It is an art, and you don't stop doing an art because you got good enough at it. Picasso didn't go, right, okay, pretty good at painting. I'm not going to bother to learn to get any better. I'm not going to try and improve myself. You improve on an art because the practice of the art in and of itself is inherently rewarding, and that's DMing. Now, if you're a first-time DM or GM or keeper or referee or toon master, whatever you want, just going to say DM, I'll be honest, DMing is not brain surgery. If you haven't done it yet but you'd like to give it a go, it's honestly not that hard. Much stupider, much less charismatic than people than you have become good DMs. But there are some skills that you can practice, and I think the one that we're going to talk about today is writing adventures. Not running pre-bought modules, but writing adventures yourself. Now, I'm not saying that modules and pre-written adventures are bad, but by nature, especially the Wizards Mega Adventures and the Paizo Adventure Paths, they are railroady, and by design, they are contrary to player agency, and they are designed to have broad appeal, rather than the niche appeal that when the niche is your table, your players, your campaign. And I tend to read these adventures, and especially adventures written by fairly new designers, and I think, this is a narrative. You are making me tell your story. You are not helping me and my table, my crew, my niche tell ours. And I think that, especially if you've run a few more freeform modules, or you've started writing your own, you begin to see this problem. You begin to learn about the inherent issues with pre-written modules. So I think that writing an adventure is really the great skill of the DM. So how do we do this? Now, the first thing that you can do that will separate you and make you better than any pre-written adventure is you can know the PCs at your table and you can know the players at your table. Are they a bunch of silly buggers who are all into I seduce everything bards, or fish Malkavian types? Are they super optimized but flavorless combat drones who really like to win? Or are they really, really super deep background role player types who are, Father, no, I shall have my revenge? And already, you have advantages when you know how to run an adventure that is specifically for the guys at your table. Now, I tend to run it freeform. I don't do many overarching plots. I don't do sort of big campaigns that have 3 acts that require the players to be there to meet that bad guy, to make friends with that NPC. I don't like that. I don't think it's a good way to run a campaign. I think in terms of short arcs, I think in terms of narratives that last about 3 or 4 sessions, and there's a few reasons I do that. The first is that it's less work. The second is that I can sort of monitor my players in real time and see what they are responding to. If they're responding to one thing or another, and I can write adventures to their taste and to their needs. Here's an example. So say you're running a horror campaign, right? And the session before, they meet Dracula, and Dracula's all sexy and interesting, look at you with your nice necks, I'm going to nibble them. Also, I am very playing mind games with you. And they're like, oh wow, Dracula was a really interesting combatant, and he was clever and smart, and he was ahead of us, and yeah, it was cool. And then you run Frankenstein, and Frankenstein's like, I am a flesh golem, smash. Obviously the players, well not obviously because you never know with players, but probably they're going to go, oh wow, that Dracula was really, really cool, or we loved fighting him, we loved interacting with him. And Frankenstein, you're like, here's a flesh golem, it was fun to fight. You are going to immediately be in a situation where you know that your players are going to react to Dracula, and more importantly, Dracula-like encounters. You can monitor the game as it goes in real time and respond to your players' interests and needs. That, to me, is the heart of DMing, is understanding what your players need and giving it to them. Because ultimately, you are there to give the players a great experience. That is your role as a DM, is to help them have their own fun. You are at their service, and if you are not happy being at the service of the players, you probably won't have a lot of fun with the DM. So Like I said, I don't tend to come in with an overarching campaign. I just give them story hooks. I give them all character hooks. I ask them to come in with a little bit, just enough backstory to entice them into the campaign world. And then I think about the adventures I can write to suit them. But I should just say, you do have your own agency as a DM. And that's to know the kind of experiences you want to and feel comfortable with and feel good at giving players. Do you want to do a scary, horror-themed story of dark things at the edge of town? Do you want to be funny or silly? Because whimsy and charm have their place. Are your guys combat dudes and you want to give them a real tactical challenge this time? You've thought about the maths, you know how to really take care of them. As a DM, what stories do you like? What stories do you think you'd be good at telling? What NPCs would fit your range that you're capable of acting out? Be honest with yourself. Think about your tastes. Think about what you're good at performing or what you need to get better at performing too, because you can bring on strange accents that are hard to do. You can, if you're not comfortable playing men, maybe you can check in a few NPCs who are men. And if you're honest and you think about your taste and you think about your skills, you can then write an adventure accordingly. But the first place to start is thinking about yourself. So especially when you're starting out, look to play to your strengths, knock out a few adventures that are within your wheelhouse before you experiment. So the first thing I do is I want to give my players an emotional hook. There needs to be something that their PCs get out of this that isn't just XP or gold, You want to give them something that their players care about. So you're not just looking for the magic sword in the tomb. The city needs to present that sword to the gods, or they would look upon their city with disfavor. So people are counting on the PCs. It's not just that the ogres have kidnapped local villagers, they kidnapped your little brother. The dragon wants a sacrifice, sure, but the sacrifice is the local princess who's been the patron to your party. Players and PCs alike will get so much more out of an adventure if they are emotionally connected to it somehow, if they have personal stakes to lose or personal stakes to gain. So it's not 100% vital. It is fun sometimes just to play mercenary bastards who are just doing a job. Make your adventure revolve around the players, the PCs. That's something that a module just can't realistically do. But you're also looking for a sense of escalation of things getting worse or harder or more interesting or whatever. Because essentially you are telling a story and stories end. So you are looking to build towards a climax. Either that's a confrontation with the dragon, you reveal the cultist leader, you finally confront your mother, something like that. You do want to have an event where the players can go, okay, we won or we lost, but that's the end. But when I sit down to actually write the adventure with the pen and paper, I have a little heuristic. I have a little formula that I use. 2 combats that escalate, one's harder than the other. 2 environmental threats, traps, a powerful monster who can't be fought, who has to be avoided, a burning building, that sort of thing. And 2 role-playing moments. The Goblin King wants to surrender rather than fight. The mad alchemist appears and taunts you. The old woman who's trying to give you the quest to begin with is insane, and you need to really grapple with her and her insanity to understand what the quest is. Now, obviously, you can rebalance. If you've got combat guys who really like to fight, you chuck in another combat, but you can't go wrong with a bit of balance in making up your actual adventure. There's something for everyone to do. There's something for everyone to shine in as well. Again, that is not something that a module can necessarily do. There is another good trick that I learned from Call of Cthulhu. I actually really like this one. I think it really pays off. I encourage players to research before they go into the adventure, and I reward it. Even if it's just bards doing lore check. The Minotaur Glorbo, legend lore reveals, was always afraid of the undead and the old songs. They say the castle was built on an elven burial site. Mr. Sakamoto was in the special forces when he was young, and then you pay that off. You understand that you can scare the Minotaur Glorbo by pretending to be a ghost, or you stop the Lich by giving her an elven burial, or you go and find Mr. Sakamoto's old general, something like that. Giving players information that they can then use to, in their mind, sort of short circuit or defeat the adventure really, really does pay off. So how does this all come together? How does this little formula work out with all the other stuff I've been talking about? First of all, let's talk about me as a DM. I like gothic horror, I like vampires, I like old forests, I like creepy castles. It's an aesthetic I'm attracted to and I think I'm good at. But maybe you like steampunk, maybe you like barbarian fantasy, maybe you like anthro-furries. It's up to you, but this is me, so I do a Fantasy Transylvania because I think I'm good at using stuff like that. Then I want to have a look at my role-playing challenges. So, the local lord has become a vampire. We first meet him in his human form. He's arrogant, and he's rude, and he's hostile. And he's got an armed guard, and he's got the law on his side. So you can't really fight him. He's not really a combat encounter just yet. But there's an emotional hook because they meet him, and he's provocative, and he's rude, and he's basically like an arrogant dickhead. They already don't like him. But I'm a narrative DM, so I like a lot of emotions going on. So the next day, in tears, a local villager comes to the party and says, "Oh no, I'm crying and they have kidnapped my daughter. I know it was that dickhead lord. Can you go up to his castle and help find my daughter, please?" And even more points if I can use an NPC to play the dad who they have met before, especially if they have good relationships with him. If they've been selling all their stuff to the local blacksmith, this is the local blacksmith. You just want to give them, again, the feeling that they're helping out a friend rather than just doing an adventure. Then, of course, I want to give them some research. I want to give them the opportunity to learn more about the adventure going in. So the wizard hits the books, the bard talks to the local old folks who know the old lore, and they discover that 500 years ago, the vampire bloodline of the Stravians lived here. And the Stravian vampires were especially cursed by holy water. So, okay, there you go. The players already feel connected to the adventure because they're kind of thinking like, haha, I figured something out. So, I want to start the adventure in the castle as quick as I can, so I'm just going to wave my hands over you, take a carriage up through the haunted forest. I could attack them by wolves if I wanted to, but no, I just want to get on with it. So, immediately the vampires have killed all the humans within the castle and they have trapped the main hall. So, the guys walk in, they see dead bodies and blood everywhere, oh my god. Then, as they go into the castle, a pit opens beneath them or a chandelier drops or something. So immediately I'm introducing a non-combat threat. Immediately they know, okay, this place is a bit trapped. This place is not as safe as we would like it to be. Then, as they're going through the castle, I want to give them another combat encounter. They haven't had one yet. So they meet the guy's daughter and she's been transformed into a vampire. She's a vampire spawn now. She attacks them. She's trying to kill them. But during the combat, she's going, I don't want to do this. I'm being forced into this. He controls my will. And there are other women still alive here. He's going to do the same thing to kill me and save them. So you get a role-playing encounter and you get a combat encounter. Hopefully, some of the players will even try and save her rather than kill her. So that's fantastic. That's, you're combining two things at once. I still need a few terrain encounters. So I might say, okay, well, the larder is poisoned with wine that turns you into a ghoul. I might say, oh, the Lord's dad has been transformed into a werewolf and jailed up, and it's not his fault. He's actually innocent. Oh, I might say that there's a gargoyle outside, and if they try to leave, he throws stones on them. So again, I've got a bunch of encounters ready to use that I have pre-prepared. But again, I want to really key this to my PCs. So I might know that one of them has a fear of rats. So I might say, okay, well, the basement is just a flood of rats. They open the door, they look down with the torch, and why is the floor moving? Bring me the light. Oh my god! And then suddenly, they've been in Cloverfield where all the rats just surge over them. And it'll be scary to certain PCs. And that's what I want, because I'm mean. Then last, you're going to come to the climax of the adventure, where they win or they lose, where all the cards are laid on the table. And in this particular case, we're talking about a vampire lord who you've already met. You've had a role-playing encounter with him so that you know that he's an arrogant pig. So maybe you can use that to your advantage. You can bait him. You coward, all you've done is fight children. Now fight me. Okay, so he's going to run away as a bat, but you've appealed to his arrogance. So you've manipulated the bad guy. That is way more exciting than just, oh, I shot him with a disintegration bolt and he did 60 damage and now he's dead. Maybe the research pays off. The holy water. Wait. Use the holy water. He's a Stravian vampire. It will burn him. And it will not harm the girl. So splash it all over him before he can turn her into a vampire. That's a cool little payoff. And events that come out of role-playing encounters, events that come out of things that your PCs have learnt, these payoffs and callbacks will really, really strengthen your adventure writing game. And your players will feel so much more connected to the storyline. Now, obviously, all your ideas are going to be idiosyncratic. All your ideas are going to be personal. I'm sure that other people have fantastic formulas for writing adventures, but that 222 has stood me in good stead for a very, very long time. And I think that just by listening to this video and seeing how it paid off, you can see that it makes things so much easier because I'm working to a formula. I know how to do this, this, and this, and then I'm going to have a pretty okay adventure no matter what happens. But the real skill of writing adventures is learning what to do when things go tits up, baby. So things do go tits up. It's an RPG. It happens all the time. It is part of the fun of the RPG. I've done another video on recovering from disaster though. You can go look that up. It was a few months ago. But what you will really learn about yourself as an adventure writer and as a DM is how you deal with mistakes, how you deal with disaster, how you deal with things just going spare that you never could have imagined. And players are animals, man. They do this to you all the time. Now, you can always just say, guys, look, I don't want to railroad, but this is going in a direction I didn't prepare. I don't have the adventure written to deal with these events. You shouldn't do that. You can, but you shouldn't do that. You should always try and roll with the punches. You should always try and improvise because players will always have more fun when they're reacting to events that they have caused than events that you have caused. It's just part of the art of DMing. Next time it happens to you, just roll with it. Just go with it. And that, I think, is a pretty good introduction to why and how you should just learn to write your own adventures. You can use modules. I'm not saying don't use modules, but I am saying that I think that you will get superior results as a DM if you write your own stuff. And when we come back next time, we will talk about narration. So why don't you give us a like? Why don't you give us a share? Why don't you give us a subscribe? Tell your friends, baby. And I hope that you enjoyed this. See you later.